There is no doubt now that Max Verstappen is in the 2025 championship battle. It's a season that should have been McLaren's, but the Dutchman seems rejuvenated since the summer break, and McLaren's decisions are actually helping Verstappen to take the title away from them. Let's look at how Verstappen and Red Bull turned their season around, the problem that McLaren have given themselves, and if Max Verstappen can defy the odds and make it 5 in a row. The turnaround in form from Red Bull and Max Verstappen has been incredible. In Hungary, the race just before the summer break, he finished in 9th place and was over a minute behind the two McLarens. It was his worst result of the season, other than Spain, where he decided to do this, and Austria, where Kimi Antonelli did this, which meant going into the summer break, there was a 97-point gap between Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. In fact, Oscar extended that lead in the championship at Max's home race in Zandvoort to 104 points after taking the win away from Max, who finished in P2. Max has said himself, if someone told him in Zandvoort that he was in the Drivers' World Championship fight, I would have told them they were an idiot. And you can't blame him. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago after Baku that we were saying Verstappen's championship bid would be doable, but he would need the McLaren cars to throw away points through complacency or errors, enter a double DNF in the Austin sprint. Oh, but George Russell's Mercedes would also have to take some points off Norris and Piastri as well, enter George Russell winning the Singapore Grand Prix. Oh, but Max would probably also need Ferrari to get into the mix too, and they won't trouble the McLarens, surely. Enter Charles Leclerc holding up Lando Norris in Texas to stop any chance of a fight for the win, and both Ferraris finishing above Piastri. Like, what is happening? The 104-point gap post-Zandvoort is now down to just 40, which is a 64-point swing in Verstappen's favour over the course of just 4 races and a sprint. And I know that Max has been comfortably the best driver on the grid for the last few seasons now, but this turn up in form is insane from Red Bull. So what's made the difference? Well, first off, they clearly had an incredibly productive summer break, as going into the Zandvoort weekend, the upgrades to the front wing and the floor of the car, although not allowing Max to be on the level of the McLarens just yet, put Max back into a good mood with the car. The Dutchman was actually praising the feel from behind the steering wheel, and I can't remember him doing that at all in the first half of the year. Even when he won prior to the summer break, he still slated the car's balance. But that good feeling and trust in the car seems to have allowed Max to turn on the kind of performances that we've been so used to seeing in previous years. At Monza, he set the fastest lap in Formula One history in qualifying, before then carrying that speed into Sunday by winning the Grand Prix and setting the record for the fastest F1 race ever. And then in Baku, he demolished everyone, putting together a Grand Slam weekend in a car that we don't deem to be the best on the grid. Max just looks revitalized behind the wheel of his Red Bull. Helmut Marko even said, now that the car is working and with his success at the Nürburgring, I would say 2/10 just came from him because he's really motivated. He's enjoying F1. You don't hear him shouting, he's smiling, so that's what you need. But the real test of this Red Bull car was always going to be the Singapore Grand Prix weekend. It's the only track that Max has never won a race at on the 2025 calendar, and historically through this regulation cycle, it's been a bit of a bogey track for the Red Bull team. But a P2 behind George Russell, who is just having one of those races at Mercedes where everything clicks for reasons that even they don't truly understand, is a very positive sign, and suggests that Red Bull's pace is not just because Monza and Baku are outlier circuits, but the Red Bull team has made real progression in understanding the car that translates to not just low downforce, but also high downforce tracks. Highlighted even more so by the fact that the Red Bull car of Yuki Tsunoda is also picking up his highest point scoring weekends of the season, after also picking up some of those upgrades that have been available to Max since the summer break. Top that off with a clean sweep double pole position, one of which he didn't even need a second lap to secure, and a double win in Austin, snagging him 33 points. And Max has gone from saying only idiots would believe in his championship possibilities to saying, for sure, the chance is there. Max knows he's back to his absolute best. The car is back under his control, and he has 5 races and 2 sprints still to come where he could win all of them. Let's not forget, he's won 10 races on the bounce before, and Mexico is a strong Red Bull track. Brazil is possibly Max's best circuit. Vegas will likely see George closer to Max than the McLarens. Qatar, he won last year in an inferior car. And then it all comes down to Abu Dhabi, where Max more than anyone knows that anything can happen. And the biggest thing that actually helps Max Verstappen more than any of that is the other side of this championship equation, where the McLaren car just doesn't look like the car that won so many races before the summer break. That dominance that we saw in the first half of the year is gone, and the papaya rules have once again put a bullet in each of the McLaren drivers' feet. McLaren are now in a really awkward position where what they really need to do is consolidate every point possible and channel that into the championship battle by picking a number 1 driver who can take all of those points, but they can't pick a number 1. All year they've said they're going to let their drivers race and that there will never be a number 1 driver within that team. Andrea Stella was talking about this situation after Austin, and he said, "I was very clear in capital letters that Max was in the contest for the Drivers' Championship. And when I say something, I mean it." We know that when Max has the material to win, he becomes a very serious candidate to win. So it doesn't change what our understanding of the situation is, it doesn't change what we do. And to be fair to the McLaren team, if they did say right now, Oscar Piastri, you're leading the championship, so you're our number 1 driver for the rest of the season, there's a scenario where Oscar could come second in every single race to Max and still lose the championship. And I don't know about you, but I can't imagine a world where Piastri even finishes second in the rest of the races this season, because Piastri is dramatically out of form. He hasn't been on the podium since Monza, and this is the same point in the season as last year where Piastri started to struggle. I know he won Azerbaijan last year, whereas this year it was a nightmare weekend, but here are Oscar's results in the races after Azerbaijan in 2024, which are exactly the same races we are heading into now. Mexico, he finished P8. Brazil, P8. Vegas, P7. Qatar was the only real positive weekend for Piastri in the final 5 races of last season. And I know he collided in Abu Dhabi, but even still, I don't know about you, but that doesn't fill me with hope, especially when it feels like the cool, calm, collected Oscar of earlier in the year is missing at the moment. We're starting to see some big mistakes from Oscar Piastri's side of the McLaren garage, like jumping the start at Baku, followed by crashing into the wall, crashing into your teammate at turn 1 in Austin during the sprint. Did those mistakes come from the pressure of the championship? And is throwing away those potential points just going to increase the pressure that he's already putting himself under? I think so, which means I think that at this point in time, Lando is the in-form McLaren driver. Not to say that he's been brilliant, but without the mechanical failure where he was running in P2 in the Netherlands, which would have given him an additional 18 points, he would now be leading the championship. Even the 10 points he lost in Canada would be enough to put him within 4 points of his teammate. On top of that, one of the main reasons that the McLaren car was able to shine so much in the first half of the year was due to the car's ability to look after its tyres way better than the rest of the grid. As that advantage has slowly slipped away from them in the second half of the year, we have to think that Lando has always had that advantage over Oscar when it comes to that aspect of racing, and therefore will have a better chance at maximizing the results in the final few races of this season. If Max wasn't in the equation here and we were just looking at the 2 McLaren drivers for the championship, I would be backing Lando Norris to come out on top after Abu Dhabi. But because he isn't leading the championship now, there is no way that the team will convince Oscar Piastri to treat Lando as the number 1 of the team and hand over that championship lead that he's been holding on to since Saudi Arabia, which means McLaren have no options that work. Neither one of their drivers will realistically agree to be the number 2 for the final 5 races of the season, and that helps neither of them, but massively helps Max Verstappen. I know a lot of you will be saying that 40 points is still a lot of points for Max to get, but as long as he has a mathematical shot, I think he'll give it his all. And looking at how rapidly Max has been able to close the gap to the 2 McLaren cars ahead since the summer break, whilst the McLarens have fluctuated weekend to weekend, I think if you give Max even half a chance at this championship, he'll probably take it. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think will be the 2025 Formula One World Champion? And whilst you're down there, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you so much to the channel members for all of your support. You are all incredible. And why not check out this video here where I analyze the incidents that have put McLaren in this sticky situation.